Story 1. The Deserted Highway Nightmare. In the sweltering summer of 2005, I was an 18-year-old dreamer, scraping by in the dusty, low-income sprawl of Uvalde, Texas. The kind of place where ambition felt like a distant mirage, and the horizon stretched endlessly across flat, unforgiving plains. I was enrolled at a local community college, the only option my parents' meager savings could afford. My best friend Andrew had ventured an hour and a half away to San Antonio, chasing a brighter future at San Antonio College. He lived in a cramped apartment just beyond the city's neon glow, sharing it with a roommate and often his girlfriend, Sarah. Our friendship, forged in the crucible of high school, was a lifeline, and I made the pilgrimage to see him whenever I could. One Friday, Andrew invited me to crash at his place for the weekend. I piled into my battered 1995 Toyota pickup, a relic that groaned with every mile, its gas gauge long since broken. I relied on resetting the trip odometer and praying I'd remembered the last fill-up correctly. Route 90, a desolate ribbon of asphalt connecting Uvalde to San Antonio, was my path. I hit the road at 3 p.m., the sun blazing overhead, and the highway was blissfully empty. By dusk, I pulled into Andrew's apartment complex, the familiar crunch of gravel under my tires a small comfort. That night, it was just Andrew, his roommate, Jake, and me. Sarah wouldn't arrive until the next day. We raided a liquor store, laughing as we dodged the clerk's suspicious glances, and spent the evening drinking cheap whiskey in their cluttered living room. Later, we stumbled into a dive bar that didn't care too much about IDs, fake or otherwise. The night blurred into a haze of laughter, clinking glasses, and the smoky ambiance of a place that felt like it belonged to another era. We staggered back to the apartment around 2 a.m., grabbing greasy tacos from a 24-hour joint on the way. I crashed on their lumpy couch, the world spinning slightly as I drifted off. The next day, Sarah arrived, and the mood shifted. She and Andrew were entangled in a lover's quarrel that simmered all morning and boiled over by evening. As the hours passed and the alcohol flowed, their arguments grew louder, more vicious. Sarah's voice cut through the apartment like a blade, and I sat awkwardly on the sidelines, nursing a single beer. The tension was suffocating, and I realized I couldn't stay. I wasn't drunk, barely buzzed really, and the idea of sleeping on that couch while they screamed at each other was unbearable. Around 11:30 p.m., I made my decision. I hugged Andrew, nodded at Sarah, and slipped out into the cool night air. Route 90 was a ghost road at that hour, the kind of empty that makes you feel like the last soul on earth. My pickup rattled along, the hum of the engine my only company. I was halfway home, lost in thought, when the engine coughed, a sickly sputtering sound that sent a jolt of panic through me. My heart sank as I realized the truth. I'd forgotten to fill up before leaving San Antonio. The odometer mocked me. I'd miscalculated. The truck slowed, then died, coasting to a stop on the shoulder. I cranked the key desperately, but the engine only whined in protest. I grabbed my flip phone, a cheap relic that matched my truck's decrepitude. No signal, not a single bar. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere, the darkness pressing in from all sides. I flicked on my hazard lights, their orange glow pulsing like a weak heartbeat, and settled in to wait for a savior. The minutes stretched into an eternity. The occasional car zoomed past, their drivers oblivious or unwilling to stop. I waved frantically at one, then another, but they sped by, taillights fading into the night. Exhausted and defeated, I decided to sleep it off. I reclined the seat, killed the ignition to save the battery, and closed my eyes. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant hum of a passing car every 10 minutes or so. I was drifting into an uneasy sleep when a sharp sound snapped me awake, a car door slamming behind me. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. A massive pickup truck loomed in the darkness, its headlights off. My pulse quickened. I twisted in my seat, straining to see. The truck was empty, its driver nowhere in sight. Cautiously, I stepped out, my boots crunching on the gravel. "Excuse me," I called, my voice trembling. No answer. I edged closer to the truck, peering into its cab. Empty. My stomach churned. I scanned the tree line along the road, half expecting to see someone lurking. Maybe they'd pulled over to relieve themselves in the woods, I told myself. I hurried back to my truck, locked the doors, and sank low in the seat, my heart pounding. Then came the tap, a sharp rap on my window. I yelped, whipping my head around to see a man staring down at me, his face illuminated by the faint glow of my hazards. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that felt more predatory than friendly. "Hey, buddy, need a hand?" he asked, his voice smooth but edged with something unsettling. I cracked the window an inch. "Hey, I ran out of gas," I said, trying to sound calm. "That's quite the predicament," he replied, his smile widening. "Step out and give me a hand with this real quick." I assumed he meant a gas can, a lifeline. Naive, I unlocked the door and stepped out, closing it behind me. But he didn't move toward his truck. He stood there, towering over me, his smile frozen. "I need you to empty your pockets," he said, his tone shifting to something cold and commanding. The words hit like a punch. I was a broke college kid with nothing but a few bucks and a shitty phone. But I wasn't about to lose what little I had. Adrenaline surged and I bolted for the trees, my sneakers pounding the dirt. I heard him curse and give chase, his heavy footsteps crashing through the underbrush. I was small, wiry, and fast. I zigzagged through the pines, branches clawing at my face until I lost him. Gasping, I crouched behind a massive oak, my breath ragged but silent. "I'll kill you, you piece of shit!" His voice echoed through the trees, raw with rage. I froze, every muscle tensed. Was he taunting me or just venting? I didn't care. I stayed there, curled in the dirt as his footsteps faded. Hours passed, the cold seeping into my bones. I didn't move until dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold. When I finally crept back to the highway, his truck was gone. Mine sat violated, both doors ajar, the glove box ransacked, my flannel hoodie missing from the passenger seat. He'd taken what little he could. Shaken but alive, I flagged down a kind stranger who drove me to a gas station. I bought a fuel can, filled it, and got back to my truck. The engine sputtered to life, and I drove home, the weight of the night pressing on my chest. That experience was a brutal awakening. The world wasn't the safe, predictable place I'd imagined. There were predators out there, waiting for the vulnerable. But there were also angels like the man who stopped to help. I learned to check my tank, to trust my instincts, and to never take the kindness of strangers for granted. Story 2, The Trunk of Terror. It was the winter of 2005, and I was an 18-year-old freshman, naive and reckless, navigating the world with the confidence of someone who hadn't yet been burned. I went to college 5 hours from home, a small liberal arts school nestled in the rolling hills of North Carolina. My Mazda 3 was my pride and joy, though I treated it like a punching bag, pushing it to its limits and routinely flirting with an empty tank. Friends teased me about it, but I'd laugh, insisting I could squeeze 30 miles out of E. I was wrong. Winter break had just begun, and campus was a ghost town. My friends had left for home, but I lingered, savoring the quiet before my night drive. I hated traffic, the kind that turned a 4-hour trip into a 5-hour slog, so I planned to leave late, cutting through the night to shave off time. At 10 p.m., I tossed my duffel bag into the back seat and hit the interstate, the Mazda's engine purring under the stars. An hour in, the gas needle kissed E. I cursed myself for not filling up, but figured I'd find a station soon. The interstate was a lonely stretch, flanked by dense woods with no signs of civilization. I kept driving, eyes scanning for an exit. Then the car started to protest, strange gurgling noises followed by jolts that shook the frame. My stomach dropped. I'd pushed it too far. The engine died as I coasted onto an exit ramp, the car rolling to a stop on a dark, unmarked road. The silence was deafening. I grabbed my phone, T-Mobile, the bane of rural existence, and saw no bars. Not even 911 would connect. Panic crept in. I was alone, surrounded by woods, with no way to call for help. I turned on my hazard lights and waited, the cold seeping through the windows. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, headlights appeared in the distance. I flashed my high beams, praying they'd stop. The car slowed, passed me, then made a U-turn and pulled onto the grass behind me. Relief washed over me until I remembered I was an 18-year-old girl, alone, in the middle of nowhere. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. I couldn't see his face, but his silhouette was imposing. I cracked my window as he approached. "Need help?" he asked, his voice calm but not entirely reassuring. "I ran out of gas," I said, my voice small. "I need a gas station." He nodded. "I can give you a ride to one. Nearest is a few miles up." He looked trustworthy. Bald, glasses, middle-aged, like someone's dad. But something in his eyes made my skin prickle. Still, I had no other options. I locked my car, grabbed my keys, and followed him to his black Honda sedan, probably a 2010 model. The interior smelled off, musty, chemical, like something I couldn't place. He made small talk as we drove, asking where I was from, what I was studying. I kept it vague, saying I was headed home from school. The road was pitch black, no buildings, just endless trees. The conversation felt forced, his questions too probing. Then I heard it, a thump from the trunk. Then another. My heart skipped. I glanced at him, but he kept talking, his voice louder, as if trying to drown it out. We reached a small town, a cluster of houses and a diner under flickering streetlights. At a red light, the car idled and the silence was deafening. Then it came, a scream, muffled but unmistakable, from the trunk, followed by frantic banging. My blood ran cold. Our eyes met for a split second, his face unreadable. Instinct took over. I unbuckled my seatbelt, flung the door open, and sprinted into the night. He lunged for me, his fingers grazing my jacket, but I was faster. I heard him curse, slam the passenger door, and peel out, tires screeching. I burst into the diner, breathless, and begged for a phone. The waitress, wide-eyed, handed me a landline. I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I recounted everything. The man, the car, the screams. Police swarmed the diner, taking my statement, jotting down every detail. His appearance, the car's make, the pickup location. They drove me back to my car, where AOLA eventually arrived with gas. The ride home was a blur, my hands trembling on the wheel. I never learned what happened to that man or who or what was in his trunk. But the memory haunts me, a reminder of how close I came to becoming a statistic. I stopped driving on empty after that, and I never trusted a stranger's smile again. Story 3. The Night of Double Betrayal. Morganton, North Carolina, is the kind of place where time moves slowly, where the quiet of rural life wraps around you like a warm blanket. My husband Tom and I own a modest plot of land here, a sanctuary from the chaos of the world. I'm a nurse, my schedule a chaotic dance of day and night shifts that leaves me perpetually exhausted. This story begins on one such night, after a grueling 12-hour shift that ended at 3 a.m. My phone was on its last 5%, my stomach growled, and all I wanted was food in my bed. I stopped at a 24-hour gas station, its fluorescent lights a harsh contrast to the inky darkness outside. I pumped $10 worth of gas and grabbed a packaged sandwich from the cafe inside. As I ate, a man lingered nearby, his eyes tracking me like a predator sizing up prey. He was scruffy, his clothes worn, and his stare unnervingly intense. He left without buying anything, and I brushed it off as paranoia. I filled my tank, the smell of gasoline sharp in the air, and hit the road. The roads around Morganton are treacherous at night, twisting, unlit, flanked by dense forests. I drove slowly, my eyelids heavy. Then without warning, the gas gauge plummeted to E, the low fuel light flashing and beeping. I frowned, confused. I'd just filled up. Was the car glitching? I pulled over, restarted the engine, but the needle didn't budge. I tried to keep going, but the engine sputtered and died. Panic clawed at me. I called Tom, my voice trembling. "How is this possible? I just got gas." As I stepped out, the smell of gasoline hit me, stronger than it should have been. I told Tom, and his voice tightened. "Sounds like a leak. Stay put. I'm calling roadside assistance and heading your way." Then I saw it, a car approaching, its headlights off. It stopped a short distance behind me, silent and ominous. My mind flashed to the man at the gas station. "Tom," I whispered. There was this guy watching me. What if he did something to my car? His tone shifted to raw fear. It's possible he cut your fuel line. Get out of there, now. I didn't hesitate. I yanked the keys from the ignition, locked the car, and sprinted into the woods, my phone at 2%. I texted Tom my location and ran toward the nearest house, its silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. The driveway was long, gravel crunching under my sneakers. I pounded on the door, ringing the bell frantically. A light flicked on, and an older man, maybe 60, opened the door, his eyes bleary with sleep. Please, I need to hide, I gasped. Someone's after me. Can I charge my phone? He hesitated, then let me in. I was still in my scrubs, my heart racing. He offered to find a charger and pointed me to the living room. I sat, clutching my phone, now at 1%. He called from the kitchen, asking if I wanted water. Yes, please, I said, trying to sound calm. But in a mirror across the room, I saw him filling a glass, then dropping something into it. My blood ran cold. The faucet ran for far too long, as if he were covering something up. He returned with the glass, his eyes fixed on me. I took it, thanking him, but didn't drink. He sat across from me, asking me to repeat my story. I deflected. I just need a charger to call my husband. He nodded and went upstairs, saying he'd look. The second he was gone, I checked my phone, 1%, and sent Tom my location. I sniffed the water. It smelled fine, but I knew what I'd seen. When I heard his footsteps on the stairs, he said he had no iPhone chargers, only Android. That was it. I bolted for the door, not looking back. Outside, I ran down the driveway, my chest tight with fear. I hid in the trees, creeping along the road, my phone now dead. I waited, praying for Tom's headlights. When I saw his truck, I waved frantically, tears streaming down my face. I collapsed into the passenger seat, sobbing as I told him everything. The car, the man at the gas station, the water. We drove to my car. The mystery vehicle was gone, but my back window was shattered. The back seat rummaged through. The battery was dead. Tom was livid, ready to confront the man at the house, but I begged him to wait for the tow truck. When it arrived, we followed it to the dealership. The next day, they confirmed it. My fuel line had been deliberately cut. I took days to recover, haunted by the realization that I'd narrowly escaped not one but two predators in a single night. The world felt darker, more treacherous, but Tom's voice on the phone, the tow truck driver's kindness, they were reminders that even in the darkest moments, there are those who light the way.